Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds, and we got an excellent show tonight. We got a very special guest. He also does his own podcast. He's also a retired military veteran, and he's here to talk to us a little bit about his paranormal experiences, both military and as a kid. So, without further ado, let's welcome Terrence Popp onto the show.
What's
Hey,
up?
welcome to the show.
Well,
Glad to have you.
thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. So tell my audience a little bit about yourself, the ones that aren't familiar with you.
All right. Well, I'm retired Army. I'm a retired first sergeant. Medically retired in 2018. I came in the Army in 1986. Um, I served through 3 wars. I was almost killed in 2. I got all of the crazy bells and whistles: infantry soldier, paratrooper, airborne ranger, Green Beret. Um, so I've been around the block a few times, and I grew up in a haunted house, and maybe I'm a little sensitive to that stuff because that does run in my family. It's stronger on the female side though, but yeah, I mean it's been absolutely insane. Uh, when we get to the part where I was in Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, those stories from that place, those experiences are on a whole other level than growing up in a haunted house.
So when did you first experience your paranormal activity in the house that you lived in when you were a kid?
Well, we moved from Oak Park, Michigan, when I was like towards the end of 6th grade, the summer between 6th and 7th grade, and we moved into Berkeley, Michigan, and it was an older house that was built in, I think, 1905, 1908, and it actually was an old Sears and Roebuck house that they send you all of the stuff and you assemble it yourself.
Okay.
And the first thing that happened there and was, number one, we had a chandelier in the dining room because you used to like leave the kitchen into the dining room, and then you could look in to the dining room from the living room when we were all in there watching TV. And every now and again, you'd see the chandelier move. And, if it was summer and the windows were open, we're like, it's just a breeze or something.
Right.
But in the dead of winter, when everything is sealed up and the heat's not even on, and you get the chandelier doing the moving around thing, that was, I mean, it was odd, but it wasn't like super terrifying. The real scary portion happened. We'd been in the house maybe almost a year. And I remember my mother, my sister, and I were in the living room watching TV. I was laying on the floor. My sister was sitting in this recliner leather chair that my mother used to like. I hated it. That's why I didn't sit in the thing, but my sister loved it. And out of nowhere, she just jumps up screaming, and like she's got like half her body is like soaked in blood.
Ooh.
And she's like, something bit me, something bit me. And she jumps up. She was only like 7 or 8 years old. And I jump up. My mom's like, oh my God. I grab her arm. We're trying to find out what's going on. There's no laceration. There was like just a tiny little puncture mark and it kind of looked like a hat pin or something. But it for that amount of blood to have come out that quickly, it had to go deep. And I tore that chair apart looking for a needle or something that would have done that, and there was nothing. And that one, you know, that's what the one that opened my eyes. And I used to have a dog back then. I think the dog's name was Piper, which was a Lhasa Apso poodle mix kind of thing.
Okay.
And you've studied the paranormal. You know dogs are way more sensitive than human beings.
Yep.
And this happened on more than one occasion. But it's an old wood house. And I remember I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, Magnum PI, as a matter of fact, and the show's coming to an end. It's like 10 o'clock. I'm going to go up to go to bed here in a little while. And my dog gets on all fours, hair stands up, and is looking at something and growling that I can't see. And she's tracking it with her eyes. I can't see it, but I can hear the wood floor creaking as it walked past me and then up the stairs. So I'm like, I waited about 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, I'm going to bed. Fuck this. Boom. I'm sorry for swearing. Is that okay if I swear?
Yeah, that's fine. We got a disclaimer up.
Yeah, yeah. And I had a buddy of mine he's passed away now. He died of an enlarged heart in his sleep when he was 42. But when we were young back then, he had family problems, so he lived at my house for the most part. For years, he'd be at my house like 25 out of 31 days a month. It's like he was a permanent resident. Like he's like a brother to me. And he always used to sleep on the floor. And one day he just wakes me up and he goes, "Who the hell keeps walking up and down the stairs?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm going to sleep in your bed. You sleep here." And I laid on the floor, and sure as shit, every 30 minutes or so, you'd hear boom, 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 boom. Somebody going up and down the stairs. It's pretty creepy. And then I did a little research into the house, and apparently the people who lived there prior were two lesbians, and they'd been together for like multiple decades. And one had passed away, I believe, in the house, and then the other one passed away in basically a rest home. And my mother was an amateur artist in her youth, and she had a self portrait of her breastfeeding my sister. Don't ask me why women do this. I don't understand women. But that picture would not stay on the wall. And I don't know. I mean, I'd come home from school and the picture would be on the landing. I'd pick it up, hang it back on the nail. Wouldn't think anything of it until it happened 2 or 3 times. And then, I'm like, okay. I went and I reinforced the nail. I got one of the hooks that you put in the wall,
Yep.
and then I reinforced the cable, put it on the hook. And the only way it's coming off is you have to physically lift it off the wall. You're not like cars going by, unless it's a major earthquake or something, which I'm in Michigan, so that's not a big thing. Yeah. And finally, I came home from school and it was on the floor again. I told my mother about it and she didn't think anything of it. She's like, it's just falling off the wall. You know how people are. They
Yep.
don't want to think about it. I made the mistake of telling my buddy, Pete, about that. And then he decides he's going to walk through the house insulting these people, call them a bunch of gay lesbos, blah, blah, blah. And for like 2 weeks after that, um, the house was very active. So there's something to that, I think.
Yep. When you provoke, it
Oh,
usually
yeah.
stirs it up.
Yeah. And I was so pissed because he just went home and then I had to live in the house.
Right.
Sometimes there's probably 3 or 4 times in the middle of the night, usually between 2 or 3 in the morning. um, things would fall on the floor and break, like dishes in the cupboards.
Mhm.
A glass or two would be broken on the floor. Again, if it happens once or twice and it didn't happen all the time, you can just like, yeah, maybe somebody put something away and it just slipped out. I mean, people live in the denial on the regular. But the one that stands out is we used to have one of these crystal pedestals you put cakes in, and then you have a glass top that goes over it. But that thing sits into a groove that's a quarter of inch deep, and that was put together, pushed to the back of the top of the refrigerator towards the wall. And again, between 2 and 3 in the morning, huge crash. I come running down there, and just the top part of the cake pedestal is smashed on the floor, but the bottom part is still against the
Mhm.
wall. And when that happened, I remember I'm standing there trying to figure out what happened. My mother comes down the house, down from upstairs because her bedroom was upstairs, and I'm like, "Ma, it's a ghost." And we'd been in the house maybe 3 years by this time, and there had been a whole bunch of little things here and there, but nothing major. And you never got that feeling like you're in danger or it was like an evil entity or anything like that. But that's when my mother said, "Yeah, I think the house is haunted." And it took 3 years for her to actually come to the same conclusion I came to like almost immediately.
Right.
Yeah, and then my mother lived in that house for quite some time until like 2006, 2007. And, you know, when I was married, I had my two daughters with me, and my youngest, she was like maybe 4 years old, and we're driving back to my house, and my youngest daughter's talking about the angels who are flying around the dining room. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh, you didn't see them? They're like diamonds of light, and they're going around, flying around the chandelier in the living room." Like my youngest daughter could see the shit. It does run in my family, I guess.
Yep. Well, even with her age too, kids can see him better than we can also, just like a pet can.
Yeah, but I don't even know if she still remembers that or not. I haven't talked to her about it in years, but that was really creepy. My oldest daughter never really reported anything like that, so it just is what it is. Well,
And Wade Kirby says, "Isn't it wonderful how animals sense a threat and to find the owners? The demonic can lift pictures off walls and even lift several hundred pounds. I have seen it happen." He's worked closely with my cousins Ed and Lorraine, so
uh-huh. Yeah, well, I mean, and that was just a residential house in my childhood, and then I went in the army at 17, and then Fort Benning had a few experiences there in basic training, and we had just finished basic, and we were in the AIT portion of infantry school. It was basically a little like 3.5 months long, and they break it down. The first 8 weeks is basic training, and then after that, they're like, okay, now you're in infantry school. Nothing changed. It's all the same. The tasks just get more difficult.
mm,
And, we used to road march out to the ranges, the hand grenade range, the pistol range, machine gun range, rifle range. And in infantry school, the rifle range is a big deal because apparently they get the NCOs, that the drill sergeants are rated on how many people qualify first time through. So they were taking it pretty serious. And we were marching out to that range, and it got right around 5:30 ish. So we didn't quite make it there. And this is Fort Benning back in the day. So they're like, all right, go off the road. And we went into this. It's like a gravel turnout parking lot kind of thing. And up the way, what was it, about 200 meters ish from where we're going to sleep for the night, because they brought our chow out to us. We had mermites,
Mm,
the usual bullshit. And we ate dinner off paper plates, and then you got to have your fire guard. But before the sun went down, there was an actual cemetery there. It, long since been closed, I imagine. But it's on Fort Benning proper, and apparently Fort Benning, before it was turned into Fort Benning, was a camp, and then there was a bunch of farms on there and what have you. So the cemetery had been there since the Civil War.
mhm,
And, I didn't think anything of it. I laid down in my sleeping bag as soon as the sun went down, about 8 o'clock, went to sleep. And they woke me up about 11 p.m. for night watch or fire guard, whatever they call it. So they kicked my sleeping bag. It's about 45 degrees ish. I get up, walking around, and I heard in the distance, you hear like murmuring. Like you can almost hear the words, but not quite. And I've heard this before, so
mhm.
I've heard it a couple times at my house where I grew up when I was a kid. And as soon as I heard that, the hair on the back of my neck stood right up. All right, now this is Fort Benning, the home of the infantry, and I heard a horse. When they blow through their
Yep.
nostrils, they make that sound, and I heard the clinking of metal. And I'm telling you, man, there's just no explanation for that. So at midnight, when it's my turn to wake up the next guy, I wake him up and I'm like, good luck. Haha. I put in my earplugs and I went back to sleep. And we got up, and I remember the next morning we told the drill sergeant. He goes, yeah, it's probably haunted. There's a whole bunch of Civil War graves up in there and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's awesome. Don't ever want to go there again. And that one was pretty creepy.
Did the next guy that you woke up, did he experience the same thing while he was out there?
He heard the clanking of metal, you know, and there's really nothing in the middle of the night. You're on Fort Benning. There's nothing out there other than that cemetery. There shouldn't be any metal clanking around. There's no farms anywhere near there, so you shouldn't be able to hear horses. I mean, come on. And that was a rough one. It was pretty creepy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm
Yeah,
surprised you guys didn't see any lanterns or anything out there, like, sorta how, like, Gettysburg is, they see
yeah.
lanterns along the wood line, and
You see the ghost lights.
yep, you hear horses out there at Gettysburg as well.
Yeah. I've been out to Gettysburg a few times, but I didn't stick around at night to do any investigating. I really haven't done much paranormal investigations. I'd like to, because I've had quite a few experiences. I'm just trying to think of another one. This one is a ranger school. Now, apparently, this is Florida phase down at England Air Force Base, and during the Vietnam years, there's they used to use it heavily to get soldiers ready for Vietnam and Ranger School. There's all kinds of chopper crashes and what have you. I mean, any military post, you're going to have people getting killed all the time. If you do a big operation and somebody doesn't die, you're just not training hard enough.
Right.
That's what I've heard generals say. I don't agree with that, but that's just them. And now this is Florida phase, so when I'm going through this, I hadn't eaten properly in days. I hadn't slept probably a day and a half, and we're going out to do a night operation. And the way it works, and it sounds weird, but when you have a large group and you're moving in a straight line, you move a lot faster than if you're moving by yourself. So we're moving out there. We get a patrol order. We go through the deal. It's the same thing, every day, troop leading procedures, operation order, blah, blah, blah. We start around, the sun is just starting to go down. It's like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And within an hour, it's, you know, darker than 3 feet up a well digger's ass. I
Mhm.
mean, it is pitch black. And every now and again, when you're walking through the swamp, there's an opening and the moon comes through and everything is, there's a little bit of light and everything's cool. And we do this security halt, and I get down on one knee, and you drone out. It happens, and I'm just like, and I'm like, wow, nobody's moving, and I go and I thought the guy who took a knee to my in front of me, and I went out to grab him, and it was a bush. Apparently, they had got up and moved out without me, so I'm literally in the swamp by myself, and about a half an hour later, I try to catch up, and I realize this is not going to happen. I hear actions on the objective. I hear the M60 machine guns open up. I know it's too late. I'm fucked. So I'm like, okay. And they give you the escape azimuth if you get lost in the swamp. I dial in my escape azimuth, and I start walking back out of the swamp. Well, you move a lot slower by yourself. The
Yep.
rest, the rest of my platoon, they just crunch right through. They got there before me, and the way it works in England Air Force Base is you come to the edge of the swamp, you go up an embankment, and that's it. You're on, there's no more swamp. But along the edge of the swamp, there's that white sand, and it's like luminescent because we had about 60% moon.
Right.
And I come out, and there's three guys standing there, and I thought they were RIs, and I'm like, hey, did you see the platoon come by here? And they're like, yeah, they're right up that trail, Ranger. I'm like, oh, okay. They didn't ask for my name. I thought I was gonna get creamed because I got separated. I walk up the trail, right up on the M60. I get challenged and password in. I'm like, I give the password. I'm like, hey, this is Pop. They're like, God damn it, we're about to tell RI you're missing. Get in here. So I'm like, okay. And they're like, how'd you find us? And I go, well, those three guys down there told me you're up here. And they looked at me and they go, we saw you come out of the swamp, and there was no three guys. And I'm like, okay, I was probably just hallucinating because I hadn't really slept at all. I didn't think anything more of it until I was in Special Forces selection a couple years down the road from that, and we're all sitting in the barracks. Everyone's bullshitting, and this guy had the exact same story.
Oh, wow.
Got separated, ran into a couple guys, told them where to go. And it scared the shit out of me because I thought I hallucinated the whole thing. Because normal people rationalize that shit away.
Yep.
And I was like, oh no. Because these three dudes were probably 20 or 30 feet away from me, and they looked real as real can be. But the guys behind the M60 machine guns, they had nods, and they were watching me with night vision goggles as I came out of that swamp, and they didn't see shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a good one right there.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely, especially if you got somebody else that can collaborate it with you that experienced the exact same thing.
Yeah. And he was from another unit, and he was going through Ranger school. I think it was a couple of years prior to me, and exact same thing happened to him uh, at England Air Force Base.
Could you tell what those guys look like? Were they in, like, military uniforms or just
Well, they had military hats on. I just, you can't really see a lot of detail in the dark. I can see their outlines. There's enough illumination I knew they were human beings and they talked to me, but the guys up at the M60 who were watching the whole thing didn't see or hear anything other than me come out of the swamp and stumble right onto their position.
Right. Yeah, that's very interesting, especially if they couldn't see it with the night vision.
No, they didn't. No. And then let's see. I was working as AGR in Southfield, Michigan, and it's AGR is Active Guard Reserve. Basically, I was an active duty soldier parked at a reserve unit to make sure everyone was training to standard, and because there was a whole bunch of number fudging at the beginning of the 9/11. They had a whole bunch of these reserve and guard units reporting all of this crazy strength, and they're at like 20-30% strength. They're completely non-deployable. So they started parking actual active duty individuals, at these locations to make sure, that didn't happen anymore. And it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And my commander had already left. I was finishing up some reports. This is towards the end of my career because I've been wounded and banged up pretty bad, and they gave me a desk job, which they took care of me. I can't complain.
Mhm.
But I'm coming down the stairs, and there's this long hallway to get to the parking lot door. And off to the left, there's two classrooms, and everything's dress right dress. There's actual either boot black on the ground where the right front part of every individual desk is, and
Mhm.
there's marks where the actual instruction podium and then the actual desk is for the instructor. And I'm literally halfway down the hallway and I hear something move, and I'm like, okay. I thought maybe somebody's in the building.
Right.
I start flipping on lights. I clear the entire downstairs. I go upstairs. I clear everything up there to make sure, there isn't some wayward soul stuck in the building. Because it wouldn't be the first time where you have a reserve soldier, get kicked out of his house, fight with his wife or whatever, try to come in and crash at the armory. And normally I would let it slide. I don't really care if they're in the unit and they're having some hard times. I'll look the other way, so it's not a big deal. So the soldiers know they don't need to hide from me. So I come back down there and I look in the room, and I think it was the front desk it moved like 5 inches off center where it's supposed to be.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I heard it move. I didn't see it move, but I wasn't really scared. I was a little creeped out, but I wasn't like too bad. It wasn't too bad because I know the people in that building are other soldiers, and they're just fucking with me.
Yep.
That's what soldiers do. They're just fucking with me, and that happened a couple times. That was the most egregious one though. Like I've heard doors slam. Like I late at night, I'm I come down the stairs. I'm like walking down that hallway, and I hear a door upstairs. Boom! Like loud, like
Mhm.
slammed with force. I'm like, okay. Again, clear the building, look for everything. All the doors are locked. So there's really no doors to be slammed, but you can still hear it. So I don't know if the door actually slammed or if I was hearing like a noise from another time or something bleeding through from somewhere else.
Right.
So yeah, that
Greg
was
Greg asked, "You spend any time at Polk or Rucker?"
yes. I did JRTC at Fort Polk. I did 3 rotations there in that miserable, steam ridden hate camp. I hate that place. Uh, I don't have any paranormal experiences from Fort Polk, uh, but it is pretty creepy out there. I'll give them that. And they have those wild horses that live on the. It, I don't know. There's wild horses that come and go, and they just come out of nowhere. Sometimes it's pretty creepy. But yeah, that was a good one. Let me think of some other ones. I told you the Ranger School. Blah, let's see. I got so many, they all bleed together. All right. So this next one. Now, this is at Abu Ghraib prison. And for those of you that don't know, Abu Ghraib is a province in Iraq. And Saddam, when he came to power, apparently somewhere between 1 and 3 million people were cycled through that prison, never to be seen again. All right. A very bad place. Like the locals were terrified of it. It was, even the locals will tell you there's jinn there. That's their what they call ghosts or
Mhm.
demons or whatever, jinn. And we got arrive December of '03. I get made sergeant of the guard. Basically, I was in the doghouse because my commander was a pussy and we didn't get along. So he gave me a shit job, which is sergeant of the guard. Not a big deal. And I remember I just put in the guards. It's like my second day on the job, and I'm parked under in the shade of a couple trees that were growing near one of the walls because it's hot there. It's just stupid hot. It's medium hot and then stupid hot. There's really nothing much in between. And I'm sitting there in the truck along the edge there, and I look down because our Humvees didn't have doors on them. We didn't have up armor. We're taking the original, Humvees.
Mhm.
And I see a bunch of like rags and a couple flip flops. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I go down there and I start rooting around there. And then like there's like a whole hand of little bones just falls out. I know they're hand bones. I mean, I've been on the earth long enough. I know what a human skeleton looks like.
Right.
There was no skulls or anything, or femurs or pelvises. Apparently, they had been already policed up by because by the time we got there, the active duty units that actually freed the prison had already moved through, and we just took it from them. And they had bulldozed the top off of one of the mass graves, which was right outside of the prison complex that I lived in. Because Abu Ghraib is a huge prison complex, and it has 3 or 5 individual prison complexes inside, the whole complex. It's really creepy. And I'm like, oh great, you know. I ran it up the chain of command, like the human remains that we were told to fill out the reports. You find human remains. There's a form you fill out. You take it up to it goes up your chain of command. And I didn't hear anything back. So a couple weeks go by, and I start making phone calls because at this point in 2004, I was a master sergeant, triple tab master sergeant. So I had the Special Forces tab, Ranger tab, and the Airborne tab. I already had a CIB and a Combat Jump Star. So in Big Army, I have a lot of pull. So I start making these phone calls, and I get a hold of the Civil Affairs team at Victory, and I start asking them questions. I'm like, I found a whole bunch of human remains here. I sent the report up to Shane. I haven't heard anything back. Is anybody going to come and look at this? They're like, no, no, no. There's several mass graves around where you're living, so it just is what it is. And that did not sit well with me because I'm not a fan of cemeteries, and I sure as shit don't want to live in a cemetery. And that's exactly what that place was.
Mhm.
And this is how evil it was. The prison block that we moved into was the political prisoner cell block. And out back, they had a wood chipper. Now, what the hell do you need a wood chipper in a partial desert environment,
Right.
in a prison. All right. So I'm just setting the stage right there. You know, from the very moment I unpacked my bags and moved in my trunk into my living area, I just had a feeling like I was always being watched. The skin on the back of my neck was always standing up. You know, I it was just it was just super creepy. And again, you would hear the murmuring. Like you it's somebody speaking Arabic, but you can't quite make it out.
Mm.
Now, there aren't any we call them hajis during the nighttime inside the complex unless they're in the low priority camp, which is about 2/3 of a mile away from where we were at. So you're not hearing them. And I would hear the mummerings, and then every now and again you'd hear the scraping of bare feet on the floor.
Mhm.
All right, now I was living in a shower area that had been they took the shower heads down and everything like that. And first platoon was living in the bay, and I was living in this little shower room because I was a E8. And one of my soldiers starts messing with this female chick at the 202 MI battalion on the other side of the prison. And, you know, she's hanging out around the barracks. Now, this is an infantry barracks. You can't have women hanging around infantry guys because you know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to trip and
Yep.
fall into a vagina. There's going to be paperwork. It's just going to be bad.
Yep.
So I explained to her, I'm like, look, if you want to come here and hang out, you need to be productive. You work for an intel battalion. I need fresh intelligence. You come here, give us a fresh intel dump so I have plausible deniability why you're here, and everything's good. So this went on for quite some time. She would come, she have the CD. We would get fresh intel dumps because a lot of times the intel we're getting is 36 hours old. We're getting intel that's 4 to 6 hours old, which is way more actionable. And then she explains to me, like, oh, yeah, you're living in the acid dip room. And I'm like, what? That's a shower. She goes, no, no, no. There was a tank in there, and they used to dip people in acid until they died. I'm like, get the hell out of here.
Wow.
Yeah. She comes back a couple days later. We put in the CD, turn it on, and sure as shit, where my bunk is was a tank where they were dipping this dude in the acid until he died. And I'm literally living in there. That is not a good thing.
No.
I mean, that is insane. And first platoon, and this happened probably a half a dozen times. Somewhere between 1 and 3:30 in the morning, you have to go down the back stairs to get to the porta shitters. We used to have porta shitters,
Mm.
and because none of the plumbing inside that building worked at all. I wouldn't trust it for shit. So it's like, oh, dark 30, and all of a sudden, somebody flips on the lights to the bay and yells, "There's a kid in here." Everyone's like, "What?" Like, they're like, "Yeah, I saw this child. It ran right up the stairs." And, you know, there's nowhere for a kid to hide. We don't have like walls. You have your bunk, you have your travel box, your rucksack, and your A and B bag. That's it. There's nothing there. And they saw it. And I
Mm.
believe these guys because we were long range reconnaissance. All these guys are trained observers. You know, that's what we did. They're airborne infantry, long range reconnaissance, LRP. And the second time it happened, It was about 12:30. It was a little earlier than usual. We just lights off at 2200, and then people like mill about with their flashlights, reading books. You know how guys,
Yeah.
soldiers are. And they're grown men. I'm not gonna like crack the whip on anybody. These are all paratroopers, all hardened, veteran guys. Most of them have already been to combat at some point in the past. It's not my job, to micromanage. I don't do that. They do that. I was never that kind of leader. But it's like 12:30, and I was awake for it. And I was talking to another guy, and all of a sudden, lights come back on. I turn, and this other dude's like, "I swear to God, I saw the kid. I was right behind him when I turned the lights on, and he's not here." And there was a PFC who literally had his bunk right under the light switch next to that door.
Mhm.
And the
Well,
next and the next day, he comes up. He say, "Hey man, hey Sergeant Pop, can I move my bunk? Cause like I keep seeing that shit like every night." I'm like, what are you seeing? He goes, "It's not like the kid. I've seen it a couple times, but usually it's like a mist or a blur or a shadow blur that goes by, and I just don't want to. I don't want to live there anymore. I want to move somewhere else." So I'm like, "I'll talk to your platoon sergeant." So I went to his platoon sergeant and I said, "Hey, we got to move this guy because he's right by that door, and this ghost thing is going on, and he's not having." He goes, "Yeah, not a problem." They moved him. Everything was fine. And the final time that it happened, it was like 3 in the morning, and lights come on, kid's back. And I come walking out of the acid dip room, and I look across the bay, and I have the other light switch over here. I go, "It's a goddamn ghost." I turn the lights off, and the look on everyone's face as the lights went off, like, but man, it was so creepy. And every room in that prison had a metal hook in the ceiling. And apparently, they would torture these guys, beat the crap out of them, and they would leave a rope, on the doorknob or hanging from the hook. And they're like, "Yeah, if you're smart, you'll be dead by morning." So people used to take turns hanging themselves from this hook.
oh, gee.
6, 7 a night would commit suicide in this place, and we're living there. This is not a good environment. This is terrible. All right, now this is another thing I noticed. Because we'd get mortared between 1 and 5 times a day. We get probing attacks. People would launch rockets, RPGs over the wall or at the wall. So, you're on high alert. And I remember, I roll out, I'm in my Humvee. I got like 3 other soldiers with me, and we're waiting just in case they breach the wall. We're going to be Johnny on the spot to react. And one of the towers shoots up a parachute flare. And for the civilians out there, a parachute flare is the equivalent of the sun at high noon. And you hit the bottom, it goes up into the air like 200 meters ish, 150. And then there's a parachute, and it lights up like it's noon. And I'm standing there and I'm talking to these guys. The flare goes off. We look at it for a second. I come down here, and then I see like 2 extra shadows just for a couple seconds. I'm like, "Wait, what?" And then they were gone. Now, I know I'm not losing my mind, but there was me and 3 other guys. There should be 4 shadows, not 6.
Yep.
And apparently that's another, like, haunted areas have like a lot of shadow activity and stuff like that. And I saw one of your comments. Somebody asked me if I had my air assault badge. I did not. I never went to air assault school. Though I did a bunch of air assault stuff, never went to the school. So there we are. Now, and it doesn't really matter if it's day or night for paranormal activity to happen. Like most people think, oh, it only happens at night. It can happen anytime. This next one. Now, there were certain buildings on the complex that were boarded up, and we were given explicit instructions not to enter under any circumstance. And apparently, when the American forces were coming up on Abu Ghraib prison, the prison guards or what have you were just having a kill fest and just murdering people hand over fist. And some of these buildings were still full of gore, blood, brains, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And this is like 3 in the afternoon. By this time I was the first sergeant. As a first sergeant, you really only work 4 hours a day. All you really do is walk around, make sure things keep working. Not every now and then I got to yell at somebody, and then I have to go up to the battalion to deal with the battalion meetings. And then, of course, I got yelled at by the sergeant major every day at 1800 hours because he was an asshole. But that's another story. It's 3 o'clock. I'm sitting under a camouflage net for shade. I'm in one of those rag chairs with the frame that folds out,
Yep.
and I'm drinking a Iraqi Coca-Cola. The ones that have the old tabs that pull completely off. And I'm drinking this Coke, and this boarded up building is behind me, and the main doorway, which was basically like a complete sheet, 4x8 of plywood, and it had been bolted to the concrete. And I hear boom, boom, boom. It's right behind me.
Mhm.
It's like, maybe 15 feet. I'm like, hey, you're not supposed to be in there. Get the fuck out of there. What the fuck? And I get up and I walk around the entire thing. There's no openings. I push on the boards where the windows were. I push on the boards for there's nothing. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, maybe somebody, I don't know, somebody's fucking with me. Whatever. Go back, sit in the chair again, and I'm drinking the Coca-Cola. This is maybe 5, 6 minutes later. Again, boom, boom, boom. All right, now I'm the first sergeant. You don't get to fuck with the first sergeant like that. So
Right.
I'm like, okay, whatever. I got your shit. I'm coming in there. I'm gonna fuck you up. I get a couple Joes. We get the Pioneer tools off of one of the Humvees, and we pry the 4x8 piece of plywood off the opening, and we go in there with our flashlights. And it literally looked like a scene from Hellraiser. There
Oh,
was
wow.
blood. I mean, it was obviously desiccated and dried up by now because it'd been sitting there for 6, 7 months, maybe a little longer. And there were bullet holes in the walls, and there was hair and bits of bone. Like, it was just horrible. And that's when I realized that this was a paranormal event. This wasn't this wasn't done by a living soldier.
Mhm.
So we put the board back. Uh, you know, my guys in my unit was the company F425 Lurs Infantry National Guard unit. Half the guys there were contractors, so they showed up with their own tools. And I went and I got a impact driver, and we reattached the board. I got yelled at for that because I wasn't supposed to go in there. But I told them, hey, it was haunted. I thought somebody was in there fucking with me. It turned out to be a ghost. Everyone's just like, yeah, yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, you're a first sergeant. You get yelled at by the sergeant major. It's not a big deal. I've been yelled at before. I'll be yelled at again before I'm done with this meat suit. But that was like up close and personal because
Right.
it was literally within 10, 15 feet of where I was sitting. Again, it doesn't matter day or night. And that one was pretty bad. And we finally, like, I went home on mid-tour leave, see the birth of my youngest kid. Came back. We got moved to Slayer, which is across the MSR main service road from Victory. So were moved out of that godforsaken place. But it turns out all of Iraq is haunted.
Mhm.
And apparently, the compound we were staying on is where Saddam Hussein would allow his officers to vacation. And a lot of bad shit happened. I mean, raping, murdering. I mean, those guys were savages. So, again, I'm the first sergeant. Technically, I'm supposed to be, excused from, certain duties. Now, I never played that game. If my guys were doing something, I would pull my weight and do a shift. So apparently, we were expecting this imminent attack, and I got put on tower guard with me. There was another senior NCO from my unit there, and then there was two lower enlisted from
Mhm.
another unit. And we go up there in the tower, and I'm just sitting there. This other guy's smoking. I never smoked. It's never my thing. I never messed with tobacco at all. And I'm just standing there, and then one of these guards is like, "Do you see that?" And I'm thinking it's going to get lively up in here. We're going to have to start.
Right.
But nobody's touched. Nobody went for the machine gun. So I'm like, if you're saying there's something out there and nobody's going to the machine gun, like, what the hell's going on? So I drop my nod because you have that one that goes over one of your eyes. You can either
Yeah.
left or right. I drop it over my right eye and I look, and there's this orb of light, and it was like blue, like the color of lightning.
Mhm.
Now I lift up the nod. You can't see anything. I drop the nod, and this thing went on. It kind of moved at a pace like somebody was walking, and it went for like 150 meters before it just disappeared.
Oh,
And
wow.
everyone in the tower saw it. I'm like, what the fuck is that? And this PFC is like, oh, it's a gin. And I'm like, you say that like so nonchalantly because, we've seen it before. I'm like, God damn you. Oh, that was bad. That was a bad one. I don't
Sounds
know.
I saw we had a few questions in the chat.
All right.
Azriana Trudell asked, "Are you allowed to talk about that place? I thought it was not allowed."
Oh, no, you can talk about it. No. They didn't make me sign a non disclosure agreement. Like, I did some counter drug stuff early in my Green Beret days where they made me sign a non disclosure. But other than that, it's open game. And I mean, who's really going to believe you? You're like, oh, this place is haunted. Oh, yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, sure it is. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Now, this is the one that really cooked my noodle. This is at Abu Ghraib prison. It's like 10:30 at night. We get done with the battalion meeting. It's a bunch of bullshit. Like, literally, I'm going through the battalion meeting. 85% of the shit the battalion commander is putting out, I'm like, I'm not telling the guys that because it'll just wreck their morale. These guys had no idea how to deal with infantry, and that's fine. But, I'm walking back to the, you know, prison complex that we were living in, and the main floor is one long hallway, and it's lit from above by fluorescent lights. And all of them were working, all of them were on. Come around the corner, and this was maybe 30 to 50 feet, maybe a little bit more. Jet black figure crosses underneath the fluorescent light and goes into this alcove off to the right. Now I carried the same kit as all my guys: 13 mags, 2 frags, M4 pistol, and a battle knife, and sometimes a tomahawk. So I lock and load. I'm like, all right, ninja fucker, you're done. I go down there and I pie the corner, I clear it, a little alcove. All that was there were 3 office doors, all of them padlocked from the outside. There's absolutely nowhere that guy could have gone. That was a solid apparition shadow figure. And you could see its arms and legs. There was no face features, nothing. It was like it was stained jet black. And it didn't even throw off a shadow. It just
Yep.
yeah.
Most of them are like that. Shadow figures, you'll see them. You won't get any distinctive feature from them. It just looks like a black outline of a human being, and that's about it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
had another question from Granzer. He asked, I wonder if when Terrence saw those three guys who helped him were either one, three past soldiers who died in a training accident in that training, or three civilians who died there in the past before it was a training post.
Well, the vibe I got from them was a military vibe. Like when you talk to other military men, you can hear it in their voice. You know, military men usually have a different demeanor. At least the old school guys that brought me up did. I don't know about the guys today of the kind of rainbow coalition army of today, but that's the way it was back then.
Awesome. And Greg said, gotta love it. Cooked my noodle. Haven't heard that in 50 years.
Yeah, well, it's some crazy ass shit. I'm trying
Yeah,
to think.
Greg's an old, he's a Vietnam vet.
Yeah, so he knows what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And I've noticed, like, I've traveled, I don't know, well, I shouldn't say all over the world because I've never been to Australia and I've never been to China or Asia. But I've been all over Europe, England. I went to Ireland, didn't go to Scotland, all over the United States. And I've noticed, like, military bases, schools, armories, always haunted to a certain degree. And the older the place is or the longer it's been there, the more haunted it is.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially that prison. I'm surprised it didn't bring a lot of darker stuff in because a lot of dark, negative
Oh,
things
yeah.
happened in that.
Yeah. And here's another one you reminded me of. Again, this is, sometime between 9 and 11 o'clock at night. And I'm coming back from the battalion, walking up to the fucking cell block, and I see a gaggle of soldiers, and they're looking across the basically the mass grave field,
Hmm.
and I can hear them like, "There it is! There it is again! What the hell is that?" And I walk out there. I'm like, "What are you guys looking at?" They're like, "There's these fucking shadows out there moving around, and I have no idea what the fuck they are." So I'm like, okay, now they have my attention, and sure as shit, you see a little shadow, boop, move along, boop. A couple minutes later, boop, boop. Fucking creepy as fuck.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like it.
Wow. And it was in real time. And those were probably people who were put in that mass grave.
Yep.
It was bad. I don't know, man. I could probably write a small book about that as well.
Yeah, you actually should. You should write a book on your paranormal experiences and
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a haunted house. You know, I don't know. I think I'm I've become more sensitive to it now that since I got wounded, in '04.
mm,
I got wounded pretty bad. TBI with a stroke. Uh, they blew my vehicle up, and I watched the vehicle from above, and it felt like all day, but it was really like a second or two.
Right.
But it felt like all day long.
Yeah,
And
when usually when you have those NDEs like that, it's common for that. You get somehow you have another connection to the other side.
now, but I didn't. There was no tunnel of light. I didn't go to the lobby. I didn't talk to anybody. There's none of that. It was literally I was just looking down at the vehicle and then looking off at the horizon, and it felt like all day, like 8 hours.
Mhm.
It was like 2 seconds. But that changed my entire life. It did, because it's really hard to come back from that. And I
Oh,
was
yeah,
able, I was
definitely.
able to do it. It took a few years, and I wrote a whole book because the this is what I noticed is I had the brain damage and the stroke, and then I was trying to live my life with uh, with the brain that I used to have, but
Mhm.
that no longer existed. And I had to basically rewrite the software I operate with, and it took up until 2012. It took a while, and I wrote a whole book about it. It's on Amazon. It's called the Soldier Soul, Warrior's Way and the Soldier Soul.
Alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody be sure to check that out.
You have any more questions in the chat?
Let's see,
We got April Mueller. She says, I lived on a military base and military housing in Virginia, and it was for sure haunted. Yeah. Oh, here's another one. Now, this is Selfridge Air National Guard Base here in Michigan. My Special Forces unit, 12th Group Special Forces, used to be there before it was deactivated. And it was a big air base for World War One. Even prior to World War One, it was a pretty big deal. And the final approach, you come over Lake St. Clair. You hit their runways, and apparently, every now and again, the SPs will see people like crossing the road trying to get to the airfield, and there's nobody there. So, and one day I was a staff sergeant, and again hanging out at the unit. I was in college at the time. I had a lot of free time, so I'd hang out there and do extra duty or just help them out. And I was with the supply sergeant Stanek, who's passed away now. That's why I'm using his name. And we're drinking beers, and he was telling me, "Yeah, I trust this guy. This guy is not one of those bullshitter guys. You know, he everything all my interactions with this supply sergeant were all on the level.
mhm.
I trusted him implicitly, and he had told me that one night he was leaving post and he was driving, along the out. He pulled out, turned left on the outer perimeter road, and saw individuals cross from the Lake St. Clair side. And he got out. He had one of those, big flashlights back in the day. They had the double, the D cells in there, four of them.
Yep.
One you can hit people with. And he's like, "Hey, what the fuck's going on here?" And he drove by and he reported to the SPs, and they're like, "Yeah, we see that all the time. Don't worry about it."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Granzer said, "Terrence Popp, nothing paranormal ever happened to me. The only thing and it was paranormal when my battle buddy accidentally ran over an anaconda in Panama at night down a long road at ASP duty.
Ammo supply point. Yep.
He thought it was a branch or pipe in the road. We got out and shined our flashlights out, and we were going to move it, saw a head slowly lift up at the one side of the grass on the side of the road.
Wow. Huh. Now, I was in the Panama invasion in 1989. I jumped in there with the Rangers. It was December 20th, 1989. And I got wounded almost immediately. Got ran over by an enemy vehicle in the drop zone. Sounds worse than it was. I pulled myself back together, drove on to my objective, and I got put on casualty evacuation duty. And I wasn't in on this retrieval, but this one airborne ranger, last name Lear, was assaulting the Macho Diamante barracks. It's Panamanian Special Forces, which we trained at the Schools of America, by the way. And he caught an AK-47 round in the throat, and it came out the base of his skull and killed him instantly. Now, I wasn't on that retrieval, but they basically bring him back, to the CP. Our Doc Neiman can't recognize him because he looked completely different dead than he was when he was alive, and I think that was mainly because his soul was gone.
Yep.
But there's an unwritten rule. That's not. It's actually a rule. You never store wounded next to the dead, or otherwise you wind up with more dead. So they had moved his body, and there was a couple other airborne rangers into this one room. And throughout the night, I got hayed for some security details to basically pull security because other people were getting other wounded people. But I remember the sun was coming up, and like we're right there on the beach. So when the sun comes up, it gets light pretty quick. I would say in about a 10-minute period, it went from complete darkness to a decent amount of light.
Mm.
And I swear to God, I looked back over my shoulder and I saw Lear standing over his own body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was like, and I did the double take and he was still there. I watched him for a good 5, 6 seconds before he was gone. That one creeped me out.
Oh, I bet.
Yep.
Grantor said we booked it out of there so fast, and he said, "Oh well, yeah, Operation Just Cause."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he got to Panama in 1990, 3 years there, then Fort Campbell for 5 years.
Wow. Well, I heard Panama was actually a good duty station. I was never there, so I went to jungle warfare school there a couple times. When you do counter drug stuff, a lot of times they'll fly you down there in a military aircraft to Panama, and then you get on smaller aircraft to go to your area where you're going to pull duty at. And usually they're smaller, rickety aircraft. We'll just say that. But yeah, that
Oh, yeah.
was that was crazy times, man.
My grandfather was actually in Panama. He was in the Navy,
Yeah.
and he was in Panama he was in World War II in the Battle of Korea.
hmm Well, you go down to Panama, you're going to catch yourself some vada. Very common.
You're
Very
right.
common. The guys come back with the itchy scratchy. It's like, what were you doing out on the town, huh?
Right?
And we know. Go see the doc. Get yourself some antibiotics. You dumbass.
If you had a place to go to do an investigation, if you wanted to do a paranormal investigation, where would be the place you would want to do it at?
Oh wow. I would like to actually try Gettysburg.
Okay.
It's not that far away.
Gettysburg is actually awesome. You'll get stuff in there during the daylight.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter. I mean, day or night. But I've watched some of that Gettysburg footage where they have the sentries guarding the canyons.
Yep.
Yeah, That is, that's pretty creepy. Or there's another one where they're looking across a field and it's, first light in the morning, and you
Mm.
actually see the apparitions walking across.
We
Mm.
were there in September of last year, and we were out on the bloody field, and I actually captured on video a Chinese man in armor
Really?
out on the battlefield.
What the hell would he be doing out there?
They
That's
had they had some Chinese fight in the Civil War.
really.
Yep.
Huh.
Not
I mean,
very many of them, but they had a few.
well, if you're gonna show up equipped.
And then
Wow.
Devil's Den is a big paranormal hotspot out there, and I was actually live on Facebook walking through Devil's Den by myself, and you can actually hear in the audio, you can hear horses
Yeah.
galloping behind me, and you can hear boots marching with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally believe it.
We're
I've seen too
planning
much
on
shit, man.
we're planning on making a trip back out to Gettysburg. I'll let you know when we go. You can come tag along with us.
All right. Let me know. Wouldn't mind. I'm just trying to think of. I should have wrote these all down. I know there's a few more in there that I'm not coming to mind because I'm trying to pull information across a web of 2 dozen concussions, a
Right.
TBI, and a stroke. Yeah.
Granted said Panama, 3 women to 1 guy, and Salma Hayek, Shakira, and Selena Gomez look-alikes. The club life was fire, the army life not so great.
Yep. Well, it's the army. What are you gonna do? It is what it is. I mean, I did 33 years total time with like 10 or 11 guard or reserve time. So I can't complain. I had a good time. I really did.
Granzer said Panama was great duty stations, went to jungle school there, served with B Company, 228th AVN, 1 unit, one of the last Army Huey units.
Yeah, so one first in the 228th Aviation. And if that was in 1990, they were just bringing it in the Crash Hawks. We call them Black Hawks.
Mhm.
Back then, they just crashed all the time. We call them Crash Hawks. What are you going to do?
Carol Garcia said, "Thank you for your service."
It's all good. How many people you have watching?
It was up to 10. Few of
Okay.
them dropped off.
All right.
Carol's the one that spotted that figure that I filmed in Gettysburg.
Oh, yeah?
It shot up from under the ground and ducked out so fast.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I think there's some type of unwritten rule that the other side is not supposed to communicate with us in an exact manner.
Right.
Like there's a secret there that they don't want us to know. Maybe
I
they're
know
having a party. I don't know.
maybe. I know when we were up on Little Round Top in Gettysburg, we heard cannon fire and watched the smoke actually roll up over the trees.
Wow.
And we asked the ranger, "Are they doing any reenactments?" And he says they're not allowed to do any reenactments on the battlefields. I
Why
was
not?
like, they don't allow it because of too many civilians out there and tourists, and they do a lot of tours out there.
Okay.
And he said, I told him we heard cannon fire. He says, "So we heard that too." I said, "Well, we just seen smoke roll up over the trees."
Yeah.
He says that's a common report here
Really?
on the battlefield that they see that. And I actually got to see a Civil War soldier up on Little Round Top. I peeked down over the hill and there's this rock formation standing up. Here's this soldier in a gray suit, young, kind of youngish in the face. I could see him plain as day, and he peeked out like this at me, and he quick ducked back in like I was an enemy or something, getting ready to shoot him.
But the thing is like whenever you see figures like that, they seem to peek out and then they like it. The minute you see them, like, oh, I'm not supposed to be seen, and they
Yep,
duck back.
yep. That's like on our SLS Connect camera when they know we spotted them. They'll only be there for like 5 seconds and then they're gone.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that black apparition I saw was maybe 3 seconds, or maybe four total. Just
Yeah, and a lot of them need energy. They gotta gather energy too to actually show themselves like that.
see, I don't know if I buy into that or not. I mean, I just, I don't know. I mean, I've heard that, you can put a Jacob's ladder and,
Mhm.
give them some energy, but I don't know.
They'll draw off of batteries because 'cause they're supposed to be, the theory is that what scientists say they're made up of electromagnetic fields, so that's why they drain your batteries, and they'll tap into a human body too because the human body's got puts off an EMF field too.
Yeah. Hmm. So the guy's asking, did I ever serve in Fort Campbell, Kentucky? No, I've was never stationed there. I've been there a few times. If so, any stories, indications of Sasquatch there? Okay. So this, I wouldn't say this is a ghost story, but I was stationed in Utica, New York,
Okay.
working for the 403rd Civil Affairs Battalion in the satellite unit from Syracuse, and it was spring, close to summer, and I just got this wild hair up under. I got a wild hair up my ass that I was going to go trout fishing off of one of the Finger Lakes, which apparently there's really good fishing there. So I've been told.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, I load up a rucksack. I got my usual stuff, tarp, fire starting crap, sleeping bag, flashlight, some food, fishing pole, tackle box, in my 12 gauge. I never go anywhere without my 12 gauge if there's going to be bears. Fuck that.
Right.
And it was a Maverick 88 riot shotgun, so it held 8 rounds, one in the pipe, and I usually kept 2 3/4 buckshot and slugs in there. I alternate them,
Mhm.
and I had an additional 18 rounds in the pack. So I parked my car off a turnabout. Uh, Apparently, people park there all the time. It's not a big deal. Didn't see anybody else. Put my rucksack on and head down the trail. And I walked for maybe 40 minutes. Find a decent location. It's 6:30, 7 o'clock ish. So it's getting dark, starting to get dark. The sun's going get low in the sky. Build a fire. Put up my hooch. Uh, Heat up I think it was a can of the big Chef Boyardee beef ravioli.
Mhm.
Ate it right out of the can. Typical grunt shit, not a big deal. And it's about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I rolled out the sleeping bag, and then it was like a curtain came down. Absolute silence. No insects, no animals, just a little bit of noise from the wind in the trees. Hair on the back of my neck fucking went right up. I got to my feet, put my back against this tree that was about 4 feet wide with my 12 gauge, and I stood there all fucking night. All night. Sun comes up. I start hearing, you know, sound again. I'm like, okay. So I pack everything up. I go down about another 400 or 500 meters. I find this stream that's going right into the lake, and there's a little bit of it's like a basin.
Mhm.
And, I'm like, oh, there'll be some good fish in there, man. So again, dropping my hook, doing my deal. Again, the sound cuts out. And I'm like, that's it. I'm fucking out of here. I packed everything up, fucking road marched my ass back to the car. I never went back. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I should have left first thing in the morning,
Right.
but I just can't explain it. Like I watch Missing 411.
Yep.
Now, if I had known about Missing 411, I never would have went fishing by the Finger Lakes because a lot of people disappear from there,
Yep.
and they disappear here in Michigan as well. But that was a very very creepy night. Let's just say. But if there was something out there that was going to get me, he was going to have to work for it because
Right.
I'd have dumped all fucking 8 rounds into that whatever it is. Fuck it. I
I
didn't hear any Bigfoot. There was nothing like that. There was just silence.
Yeah, that's usually how it happens in the woods. I'm a hunter, so I grew up in the woods as well, so you get that feeling like all of a sudden you're being watched and everything goes silent and then woods just get real quiet and you're like, "What is going on?" It's like,
Yeah,
"What is coming?"
yeah. You are in the crosshairs now.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been in a couple of those situations out in the woods deer hunting.
yeah. I mean, it could have been a bobcat or a mountain lion, but I didn't hear anything. If it was a bear, I mean, they shamble. They make a lot of noise when bears
Oh,
move.
yeah.
Didn't hear that. I didn't hear a bear. So I don't know.
Granzer had a question. Pop, what is your theories on the whole 411 incident?
I think there's something taking people from the earth in some way, shape, or form. I think it's some type of interdimensional travel because there's just no reason. Some of those 411 stories are you just they don't. There's no logic to it. Like that one where that guy watched his young son. They're playing hide and seek. The kid goes behind a bush and they never see him again.
Yep.
Like, how do you explain that? Or people disappear, on mountains, and they're on the same footpath, and there's people before them and after them, but then all of a sudden the guys go, they're gone, and nobody saw anything. It's just gone. So listen, like the whole animal mutilation, cattle mutilation.
Yep.
I think they're doing the same thing to human beings. It's just they just don't send them back mostly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did a whole show on like for the Appalachian and the Smoky Mountains on the feral people that live out there and
yeah,
they're known to live in the old mining systems and they did it so they didn't get arrested during the war when they were arresting people. So they would actually go out and set fires to the soldiers' tents and migrate back into the old mines and they're cannibals.
really.
So
Uh,
they would kidnap people that were walking the Appalachian Trail and the Smoky Mountain trails, drag them back into these mine systems, kill them, and eat them.
I really.
Yeah, that's a big legend of the Pharaoh people out there in
Oh, it's an urban
Tennessee
legend.
and Tennessee and all that.
Nobody's ever caught any of these people.
They've gotten some photos and videos of them, but they can never
Yeah,
catch them. So that's what we were talking about on the show. If they're maybe paranormal or
yeah.
something like that, or they're coming through portals, or
Well, first of all, there's just a bunch of shit that goes on that can't be explained, and we don't have a theory of why it or how it happens. It just happens, and we've all, we like split the atom in 1945,
Mhm.
actually 1943, but it hasn't even been 100 years. And we have people out there like, yeah, there's no God, there's no supernatural. You just drop out of vagina, you live your life, and then you just go back to the blackness. That is such bullshit.
Right.
I cannot, I can't get behind that. I'm not that arrogant. I have seen things that I cannot explain unless you apply supernatural tags to them.
Yep.
I'm sorry. And listen, I catch myself, every now and again, I'll catch something out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, ah, yeah, okay, whatever. But like when I see major shit, or if I'm exposed to it, I pay attention.
Yep.
It's probably why I'm still alive.
Yeah. And now with you having that NDE, you're more open to it now because you've been on that other side.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd fall into an NDE. Uh, I just can't explain it. It's like I just was not the same when I came back. I just wasn't the same.
Granzer asked Pop any bases that you were stationed at that you heard any alleged interactions.
Uh, well, let's see. Fort Bragg. There was some. Yeah, Fort Bragg. The old World War II barracks were pretty active. When I was in the Q course, I had to live in those things, but it was nothing major. Every now and again, you'd hear a toilet flush. There's nobody in there, or a window would open or shut, or doors would open and close. But you can always explain that stuff away. And even if it was like haunted, they're just other servicemen, and they're just fucking with you. It's nothing evil.
No, they're just playing. They're tricksters.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I've never really been on a military installation that was haunted where I felt like I was in danger.
Right.
It was more like a mischievous, we're just fucking with you kind of feeling. So,
Granzer said, Pop, as you may recall, the Hopkinsville Goblin story, that before the civilians encountered the goblins, there was UFOs buzzing over Fort Campbell.
yeah, I've heard the UFO stuff. I was actually in Phoenix, Arizona in 1997 for the Phoenix Lights. It was my first job out of college, and I took a break from the Army Reserve to go work as an investment banker in Phoenix, Arizona. And during the day, I did investment banking, and then in the afternoon, the evenings, I competed as a kickboxer, and I was out running the trails in the Camelback area when I saw the Phoenix Lights, and I sat down and watched them for a good 20 minutes. And they were not flares.
Hmm.
It was something in the air, and it was big. And the way the governor at the time handled it, that guy's he should be dragged behind horses. That was just so fucked up. Yeah. And listen, if you're one of those guys who doesn't believe in anything, I feel sorry for you. I really do. Because when you open your mind to the paranormal and all of the other stuff, the universe becomes way more interesting.
Yep.
And I'm glad to be here. I really am.
Uh, Eulogy Enclave asks, what's your theory about the Bermuda Triangle? One theory is massive methane bubbles creating cumulus waters, overturning boats, and affecting planes' navigational equipment.
Well, there's magnetic anomalies all over that area. And what they are, I don't know. Um, for instance, they're finding structures off the coast, all the time that are 400 or 500 feet down or more. And the last time the water level was that low was, 15 minimum of 15,000 years ago and beyond. So there could have been anything in the Bermuda Triangle area, and we just don't know because it's covered up, but with water. But the Earth has been here for an estimated 4.5 billion years.
Yep.
And if you think we're the only civilization that has ever been on this planet, you have another thing coming. I mean, I just was watching a video in regards to the pyramids, and they find all of these like root structures below the pyramid that they can't explain.
Yep.
Baalbek, there's stones there that are half a battleship in weight that were quarried from somewhere. We can't move that kind of stuff even today,
Right.
but somehow they did it. Yeah.
Granzer said, which for those that don't know, Hopkinsville, Kentucky is around 5 to 10 miles from Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
Greg Koss says it truly is an honor to meet you, Terrence.
Well, thank you. I'm just a retired grunt. I do comedy to stop suicide. I've been doing it since 2009, and I'm up to 561 lives saved.
Pop, what about the worst cryptid of all, the blue falcon, the horror, the horror?
A blue falcon is the buddy fucker. I can't tell how many times I'll be in formation and I go, all right, what's going on? And hear somebody like, oh, Stan did it. Oh, we have a blue falcon in our midst. And you hear the entire formation. Oh. You're not supposed to narc, bro. Uh,
He says I was still at Fort Campbell when the PHX lights happened. Some of
Phoenix
my
Lights, yeah.
some of my friends say they say it didn't think it was nothing about it.
Well, I watched them for about 20 minutes. I was running, doing my road work, and I'm trying to remember what time. It was just after it got dark. I don't remember what time it was. I saw them. I literally stopped running and was drinking my water, and I watched it for like 20 minutes. I'm like, just like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, going, I'm like, it's not flares. I've seen flares. It's not flares. I don't know what it was. Whatever it was huge, and it moved pretty slow. It wasn't fast.
Hmm. Well, that's like Missouri here. Joplin, Missouri's got the Joplin Spook Light.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
You just go on that random road and you see this big ball of light that appears in the sky, and military's been there to check it out. NASA's been there, and
They
nope,
can never find it. Yeah.
never can explain why it does that.
There's a lot of weird places like that. Like I was doing an investigation in Farmington Hills, Michigan. There's a cemetery, and you literally there's this one hill on there. You go to the top of the hill, you put it in neutral, you will roll down the hill, and then you stop at the bottom, and then you roll back up the hill.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one.
And I'm like, okay, this is crazy. I brought a compass. I brought a scale. I'm weighing stuff to see if stuff is like there's a gravitational issue or a magnetic thing. I can't explain it. Yeah, that we did that one about 3 or 4 years back.
Greg says Paulding Light, North Michigan.
All right, I need to check that out. I haven't been up there.
Transer said, Pop, do you recall the PHX lights was big on news on local news? UFO investigator Jeff Woolwan.
Woolworth. Uh huh. I've seen that. I've seen that. But this is what we got going on now. Okay, we have drones now, and Like if you see UFOs today, you don't know if it's somebody out there just playing around with drones, being an asshole. But
Mhm.
back in 1997, that didn't exist.
Nope. Because I remember, I had a buddy of mine that would go out and look for UFOs back in the '90s, like '97 and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I saw the Phoenix Lights. Uh, I've seen other things, but I in the air. But you can always explain that as explain it away as aircraft. But the Phoenix Lights, yeah, you're not. Yeah, I can't explain that away. Like
Greg
I trained in White Sands, Dugway, Utah. I mean, I saw some pretty creepy stuff, but it could be explained away as advanced aircraft that we're fucking around with.
Mhm. Greg said it's north of Watersmeet.
Waters meet. I need to check that out.
Granger said, "I think the Paulding light in Michigan was in '96. That was huge. I think the sheriff saw it, but didn't know what it was."
Yeah, I don't know. It might have something to do with the magnetic field of the Earth, and it just catches energy, and you just can see it at a certain angle. I don't
Right?
know. I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I'm a grunt. So that's just grunt logic. So it is what it is. Yeah, you can weigh it against 2 beers. It's about all it's worth.
Well, that's even in Missouri here. I hear from a lot of like the National Guard about a lot of the armories here in Missouri. A lot of them are haunted.
Yeah. I wonder if you go there and ask them if you can do an investigation if they let you.
I got one guy's actually the one in Chillicothe, Missouri. He's gonna let us go in there and investigate that. He said soap dispensers fly off the wall and
Hmm.
doors would slam
Yeah.
and there's one big one. It's actually an old Air Force base down in Nevada, Missouri. My buddy Ray was stationed there before he retired, and he said that you get on the older part of that base and it's extremely haunted.
I'm just trying to remember. Was Missouri part of involved in the Civil War? Or did
Yep.
that not exist
Yep.
in
Yeah,
Missouri?
we had the Civil War through Lexington and Springfield, Missouri.
Okay. I mean, the Civil War was incredibly violent, and there's probably a lot of people got whacked who didn't know they got whacked. They're still walking around.
Oh
In
yeah,
my opinion, of course.
no, that's true. Because I mean, even like Gettysburg, there's still. I had a cousin that was killed there at Gettysburg at Reynolds Woods. Major General John Franklin Reynolds. He was shot off his horse by a sharpshooter, and people have gone out there and done some paranormal stuff and actually got EVPs of him.
Oh yeah. I don't know, man. All I could say is this: is when it's my time to go, I want to be gone. I want to go see the universe. I want to see all the cool shit. I don't want to stay here on this fucking snot bubble we call Earth. I don't even want to do this again. I don't want to be reborn here. I want to go somewhere else, do something else. I've had
Right.
enough. I'm cool. I'm all topped off with Earth.
I hear you. Granzer had another question pop. The PHX lights close to Luke Air Force Base, the whole UFO and military base connection, coincidence or no?
I'm gonna be honest. We're fucking around with shit out there that is a big secret. And I mean, we just what is it? The F-47 aircraft, a sixth-generation fighter. We didn't even know about the stealth bomber until they rolled it out for the first Gulf War. So I think we're screwing around with stuff that's probably a minimum of 50 years
Mhm.
more advanced than we are right now, and it terrifies the shit out of me, man. All I could say is I'm glad I'm on my way out. I'm on the downward spiral now. I'm on the 65 and out plan.
Eulogy said the Battle of Wilson's Creek, Missouri, the first Union general was killed, General Lyon,
All right.
which Missouri's also got it. Besides the Civil War, Missouri's also got its history of the Mormon massacres.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Y-
And then they investigated that after the fact, and they hung one guy over it.
Yeah, they hung one of I think his last name was Smith, one of the Smith brothers. They actually caught him and lynched him in, I think, Illinois, I believe.
Huh.
Illinois or Iowa. And his other brother managed to make it back here, and he made it to Lawson, Missouri by the Crooked River, and he tried to start another Mormon settlement. Well, they had found out that he was here, and they ended up a big battle over there, and he was killed there.
Huh.
But they first got him was in Hans Mill here in Missouri. The militia had rode in the day before Halloween and just started shooting them all.
Hmm.
They killed about 17 of them, men, women, children. They didn't care.
The Mormons did the killing.
The militia did. They
Oh,
killed a bunch of the Mormons. They were taking over Missouri, and they were afraid they were gonna start a big war,
hmm.
and they had stolen a cannon.
Oh, okay.
So they had Hans Mill, and they also had Far West. So they got ran out of both places, but Hans Mill is where they really started slaughtering them. The Livingston County militia rode through there, and the Mormons tried to plead with them, and they weren't listening to it. They had a kill order on the Mormons, so they just started shooting.
Well, it's not the preferred method.
And they buried him in a shallow well on the property, 17 of them.
So I bet you that place is haunted.
Oh, yeah, I've done several investigations in there and captured a lot of evidence. Sometimes you can go down there, it'll feel welcoming, and other times you go down there, it doesn't feel very good energy-wise down there.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Granzer had another question. How come you don't wear the silver star that you got awarded?
Well, I was never awarded an actual silver star. I have a combat jump star on my jump wings. That's a combat drop. I've been awarded two CIBs, and that has a star on it, but that's about it. Yeah, I'm not big in that. A lot of guys I know, they retire and they hang up all their awards on the walls and stuff. Like, I don't do any of that. It 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 just is what it is.
Right. So, let's talk about your show that you got going on.
Well, I run Redonkulous.com, and I do a podcast on Tuesday and Thursday nights, 8 p.m. To 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do another show on Sundays, 8 to 10 for supporters of the channel. I basically I got divorced after I came back from Iraq because I was dealing with a head injury and stroke symptoms, and my now ex-wife, I got the I'm not happy speech, literally wound up homeless, living out of my car, lost my kids, house, all my money. And I would say I was suicidal. And and the thing that put me on the path that I'm on right now is a former commander of mine. Now, this officer was the type of officer that was kind of fucked up in the beginning. And the battalion commander and the company commander came to my office, which is never a good thing. I was a platoon sergeant at the time. You should not have company commanders and battalion commanders coming into your office ever, unless you're going to prison or you're getting Article 15. That should never happen. And they're like, "We got to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay, well, we got this guy. You got to take him under your wing and fix him a little bit because he's a little ate up. Sorry. And I'm like, okay. So I get this second lieutenant, just all fucked up, all bright eyed and bushy tailed, Mr. Good Idea Fairy guy. And he was assigned to me for just under 2 years. And by the time he left, he was fucking good to go. And, we did airborne operations. He went to the field. I was attached to this guy at the hip for almost 2 years. So this is later on in my career now. I'm working at the 414 Civil Affairs in Southfield, Michigan. And he was assigned to the unit on paper because he was deployed to Afghanistan. And he came back from Afghanistan. And just one day, he just shows up in my office, like 11 o'clock in the morning. And we just shoot the shit all day. And I didn't know this at the time, but he was actually saying his goodbyes because he was going to kill himself.
Oh, wow.
His name was Lance Waldorf. Uh, and, he went to Afghanistan and he brought back some of that soul cancer a lot of guys come back with.
Mhm.
And I was there, man. I was gonna, I was suicidal. I was planning my exit, and he literally did almost the exact same thing that I was planning. He went to the Holly National Cemetery, June 2nd, 2008, in his dress blues, and he shot himself in the head.
Ooh.
And then I wound up running his funeral, and I got to see just how fucked up that affected everybody, his family, his friends, the people he served with, and it totally changed my perspective. So he literally took the bullet that was meant for me. He just picked a more scenic location.
Mhm.
And then I made my first video in 2009, Purple Heart's Final Beat. By 2011, I had somewhere like 115, 120 guys credit me for keeping them from killing themselves. I switched over to doing comedy in 2013, mainly because it was just so negative. I just couldn't do it. And since I'm, a Green Beret, and one of the main missions of a Green Beret is hearts and minds,
Yep.
I started doing comedy videos or comedy lectures in regards to the things that are impacting men's lives, like divorce, loss of children, loss of purpose, PTSD, depression, all of that shit. And I just started making these like little short videos at first, and then I should have kept better count, and that's on me. And I didn't really take it serious until I was like somewhere in the 225, 220 lives saved category, and I was talking to a deacon of the Catholic Church who was also a counselor. And he was like, yeah, I've been doing this 13 years. I got like, 24, 25 lives saved from suicide. I'm like, oh, yeah. And I said, well, my number's a little higher than yours. He's like, what are you talking about? He goes, I go, I'm right around 225. And he goes, what the fuck do you do? And I go, I just do comedy. And then we started reading them into the record right around 380 ish. And every time we get somebody that sends us an email or DM that says we kept them, my videos have kept them alive or stopped them from doing stupid shit, I usually say, email me your story and we'll read it on the air and we'll give you an actual number. And 2 weeks ago, we were up to 561 lives saved.
Oh, that's awesome.
Doing with nothing but comedy, logic, and reason. That's it. If I could just break out of the censorship bubble that I'm in, because YouTube hates my guts, I
Yeah.
could save more people.
Right.
I really could. I could.
Yeah, YouTube's picky.
They're beyond picky. let's just I'm losing like 250 subscribers a day. I have been able to get over 134,000 subs since 2015. I mean, I only my videos are only seen by like 1/3 of 1% of my actual subscribers, and they just they just hate my guts. And all I do is I'll be honest. I'm rude, I'm crude, I'm crass. There's a lot of swear words, many of them at the expense of women. But I mean, this is life and death here. I mean, since
Mm,
2009, I've had one thumb in the devil's eye and one foot up death's ass, trying to pull as many people out of oblivion as I can. And I would do more if I could, but I'm just one guy,
right.
and I'm fighting, the uphill battle one way in the snow before they invented down. It's crazy. What are you gonna
Ran-
do?
Ranzer had another question for you. Is there a past military encounter with a paranormal UFO, etc., that really grabs your attention? Mine is during the Vietnam War, the devil creatures of Quan Bina.
And Klang Pei. Well, Vietnam was before my time. Uh, like the only UFO thing I've seen was the Phoenix lights. The rest of it, you could explain it away as military equipment. But yeah, listen, wherever you're at, where people have died or there's active combat, you're going to be immersed in the supernatural.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it leaves its imprint, leaves an imprint on that ground right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. There's residual hauntings, which might have something to do with that. And then you have the intelligent hauntings, the ones that answer questions and shit. Just the fact that that happens, that should pretty much dissolve all of the beliefs an atheist should have. Because there's just something there beyond the physical.
Yep,
And it's fascinating and it's terrifying, but it's a reality. The minute you see anything move by itself, you have to realize that everything we know about physics is wrong. There's more to it that we haven't discovered yet.
yep. I mean, that's like there's a video you watch my cousin Ed Warren, the Endenfield poltergeist. He's actually talking to something, and the table's sliding on its own across the floor.
Yeah. The minute that that happens, everything you know about physics is wrong.
Yep.
You know
Or
that.
you get poltergeist activity where you get chairs stacked up on different angles and
Yeah,
wonder how they're balancing like that, not falling over.
yeah. I watch Ghost Adventures from time to time, but didn't they get busted for like doing some falsifying shit or something like
Oh
that?
yeah, they did.
Okay.
They were at Bobby Mackey's, and this was in like the beginning season of Ghost Adventures, and a brick goes flying across the room,
I remember that.
and they actually you actually zoom on it, and you can see a piece of string tied to the brick, and somebody pulling it across the room.
All right, whatever. Not all of that. I don't think everything is fake though. There's some shit.
Yeah, there's some that's real. I mean, I've got some real evidence and that I can't explain, and I mean,
Yeah.
there's stuff that can be explained and faked, and
You're absolutely correct. There's shit that goes on that there's no explanation for.
Eulogy wanted me to tell you about investigations of the Jesse James family farm. I actually got a chance to investigate that
Uh
during the
huh.
tour, and we were actually standing there while the tour guide was talking, and she was talking about Jesse's mom and how she would watch over Jesse's grave there at the farm. and my dad had tapped me on the shoulder. He says, "Hey, look down behind you." I looked down, and both rocking chairs were just sitting there
Yeah.
back and forth. And I had tapped my friend on the shoulder. I was like, "Hey, look." "Oh, you kicked him." Like, I'm nowhere near him. We get out by Jesse's grave, and this guy from Louisiana he knew what we were up to, and he just kept staying back with us, and he was watching. He comes out and he says he was never near those chairs. I've been watching those chairs the whole time, just sitting there rocking back and forth.
Yeah. They're probably sitting in those chairs. What are those weirdos doing? What are those
Well,
boxes you're walking around with?
when Frank was still alive, he would give tours of the house, of the farm. Frank James would
Yeah.
until he died there, and then his grandson lived there through the 50s, and he would give tours also of the house. And there's a lot of paranormal stuff in there that you can't explain. A kerosene lantern would light on its own. Tour guide would come up to lock the house up for the night, and that kerosene lantern would be sitting there in the living room lit.
Well, typically, if you have an entity that lights fires, that's bad. That
Yeah.
is never positive.
But she said she'd walk in the house and look, and it wouldn't even be lit. She
Yeah.
would see it through the window.
I had a platoon sergeant that used to flip houses back in the 70s and 70s and 80s. And he would do it around Pontiac in Oakland County and some in Macomb County. But he would buy the house, he'd move in and fix it up while he lived there.
Mm.
And he had this living room light. It would just turn on its own. And one day he like comes in and turns the light off and he's making dinner and the light turns on and he goes, "Hey, when you pay the electric bill, then you can turn the fucking light on." And it quit doing it after that. So, and his name's Sergeant Coyle, great guy. He's retired now, but again, he's not one of those dudes that just not a bullshitter.
Right. Uh, Grenzer asked, "What got you into the paranormal genre? Was it this before your military service, books that you read, living in a haunted house, media?"
It would be the living in a haunted house. Like when it attacked my sister and she was actually bleeding, I'm like, this is serious shit. There's more to this than just like slamming doors. There's something going on here, and this fucking was pretty creepy.
Awesome. Well, we hit our 2-hour mark. If people want to get a hold of you, watch your shows.
Well, you can email me at redonkulous12gmail.com. And then you can go to YouTube and look up redonkulous.com or my name, Terrence Popp. I've got like 2,000 videos on there. I have videos on virtually every video platform on the planet. I've been doing this. I run the whole show like an unconventional warfare kind of thing because this is a war, and we're watching the slow motion genocide of the men of this world, and nobody's doing shit about it. Nobody's talking about it. And I believe I'm the only comedian on the planet actively fighting suicide using comedy.
Oh, awesome. So we're going to go ahead. I thank you for being on the show.
No problem, man.
Definitely an awesome show. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, if you want me to be on again, let me know.
Oh, definitely. If you want to hang backstage for a minute, I'm going to close the show out.
All right.
I'll holler at you in a few.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed that like I did. It was pretty informational, learning about the military life and the paranormal. He's a really awesome guest, so make sure you check out his books on Amazon, check out his shows, and stay safe out there, stay humble, and we will see you again next week. Same time, same channel.
All right.
All right, we're off.